A few weeks ago, I had an incredible opportunity to attend the 2023 Pick Tennessee Conference, and it turns out it's an annual event. I only learned about it a couple weeks ahead of time and was able to get a ticket. And fortunately for me, it was in Cool Springs, Tennessee, which is not far from where I live. People came from all over the state to attend. And it was put on by the different agriculture trade associations throughout the state, like the Tennessee Beekeepers Association, Tennessee Christmas tree growers, Tennessee flower growers, and it was 3 days of networking and learning, and it was incredible. I'm so glad I got to go. I'll definitely go again next year, no matter where it is. It was so worth it. The three big takeaways for me: one, the ability to be around people who are in the similar situation as me. And I have incredible friends here, but nobody's doing what I'm doing, and it becomes very lonely at times and a bit overwhelming. So it was really special to be able to sit at these tables with people and listen to what they're up to and get advice, from people a lot more senior than me. That was awesome. The second thing that was really incredible was to learn about Mr. David Lockwood. He has spent his life dedicated to fruit crops and vegetable crops, and he's just a walking encyclopedia of really all of those kinds of plants, and he answered so many of my questions. Actually, I met with him recently to learn about grape trellising down at the Spring Hill Ag Conference, and I'll do that in a separate episode. But what an incredible mind. We're very lucky that he has committed so much to agriculture in Tennessee. And the third thing that was really incredible, and that's going to dovetail into this whole greenhouse adventure, was, the keynote presentation was by Dr. Charlie Hatcher, and he is the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state. Actually, before he spoke, there was a gentleman, I didn't catch his name, but it was really profound. He spoke first and foremost about the importance of mental health in agriculture. And he encouraged everybody at the conference to take a few extra minutes, get to know each other, exchange emails, exchange numbers, and create a support system, because suicide is pretty prevalent in the agriculture community. It's a very tough profession. There's a lot of seasonal variations. After COVID, the market changed a bit. And it resonated with me because I grew up in a farming community and mental health is just not really talked about. So that stood out. I thought that was really important. Then Dr. Hatcher got up there and he talked about, how historically Tennessee is a state that is, farming is very prevalent. One of his biggest objectives is to keep farmland in farming. And apparently, we have a governor, Governor Lee, who is very, very interested in keeping farming. And he went on to talk about, his work in that world and his motivation and his goals. And I never put it together. So I live in Williamson County, Tennessee, which is a notoriously difficult county, really, for anything. It's a very expensive county. It's a highly regulated county. And it just so happened that this is where Danny lived, and I had the opportunity to buy 40 acres from him. And turns out Dr. Hatcher is also a Williamson County resident. In fact, he is a vet, and he was the state vet before he became commissioner. And he started a vet office that his daughter Jennifer now runs, that my animals go to. And so he operates Hatcher Dairy. It's about 10 minutes from my house. And I sat there at the conference and I was listening to him, and I was just thinking about all of the issues that I've run into with Williamson County. And I thought, I wonder if Dr. Hatcher really knows what's going on the very local level. His family has been farming for, I think, 5 generations at this point. Many farms here you've kind of been born into, grandfathered into. I don't think there's a ton that are really just starting up right now. Of course, the price of land is a huge barrier of entry. And so I really thought about that after the conference. And so what I've shared before is Williamson County was not going to give me a permit for this greenhouse. They were saying that until my septic plat is recorded, right, they will not give me any permit for any structure on this entire 40-acre farm, which makes 0 sense. I mean, farming is so seasonal. If you miss a couple months, you're screwed. You lose thousands of dollars, right? Like, you need a greenhouse in the spring. Fortunately for me, you know, I've shared with you, I'm a lawyer for a living. My income right now doesn't depend exclusively on this, but it's just so ridiculous to me that the county is not on board with supporting an ag business. And not to mention, I applied for my septic permits in September. They finally opened the file in July, so it took them 5 months to even open the file. They came back and they looked at my letter of intent for a barn, a horse barn, that accompanied the application, as well as house plans. And I had written in my letter of intent, you know, the barn is going to have a summer kitchen so I can process animals. It's going to have bathrooms for farm labor and so forth. And so they came back and they said, you know, this sounds like it's a commercial building. You need to go to zoning. And I'm working with Roger Hara is my surveyor, who is incredible. Roger's great. We get along really well. And you know, what this all comes down to basically is the state of Tennessee has what they call a right to farm law. It preempts anything to do at the county level. It's defined several places in the code, which is a little bit tricky. You know, they define agriculture in a certain area, you know, the commercial production of livestock, greenhouse, horticulture, equine. You know, it's a very, very broad definition of what agriculture means, and that's intentional, right? Tennessee wants a farm umbrella of what is considered farming. Then in another portion of the code where they talk about state law versus county law and how they interact, you know, it says very, very specifically, counties cannot be more, they cannot regulate agriculture anything more than the state. Like if the state has a law, the county can't come in and make it more restrictive. And so what's happened here is obviously a greenhouse, a horse barn, these are agriculture structures. By law, by Tennessee state law, the counties are not permitted. I don't need to get a building permit. I don't need to do any of this stuff. Now, then you would probably say, well, why did you even bother getting a permit? I wanted to stay in compliance. Where I live right now, which is not on the farm, my house is already built. I have a septic system there. I have a fairly nosy neighbor who kind of peeks over the fence and says, did you get a permit for that? So I had to get a permit for my chicken coop. I had to get a permit for my greenhouse over there. And basically what it is the county wants to come out and make sure you're not going to be building in a setback. They want to make sure you're not building on your septic system. It's very simple. The problem with the farm is my septic is not finalized. So what they want to do is tie up the entire land, right? If this was a 1,000-acre farm, it would be the same deal. And they say, you're not allowed to put any structure on here until your septic is done. So I had emailed Dr. Hatcher after that meeting. And I said to him, you know, Dr. Hatcher, my animals go to your vet. I'm your neighbor. I'm trying to get a farm going in Williamson County. And I would like to just share with you and get some feedback as to what I'm running into, because it might be helpful for other folks. You know, in the interim, I have read case law, I read AG opinions, I've done all the things, but doesn't seem to help me much. So within 2 days, I got an appointment with him at the farm. And it was incredible. I got there on Friday at 10 a.m. He met me. He was in his working clothes. He was meeting an electrician because I think that they had finally decided to go to mechanized milking for their cows because of labor issues. You know, they were doing hand milking for a long time. And so we sat for about 30 minutes in front of his farm store. And he said to me, well, you know, what are your issues? What are you running into? And I explained, you know, what the problem is, how the county is not letting me put in any structures until my septic is done. And Dr. Hatcher asked for my number, and he was going to text me a PDF that Farm Bureau put out. There's a guy, Kevin Hensley, who's in charge of like lobbying and that kind of stuff. And I said to him, Dr. Hatcher, I've already talked to Kevin. I've already read the PDFs. I'm aware of cases in addition to that. I've read all of the code. I said, they're still not listening to me. And you know, we had a really good conversation. I said, basically, look, there's a kink in the hose. I said, I don't think you're aware that, you know, by state law, which is what this Farm Bureau PDF talked about, by state law, you are allowed to have huge deference, right? There's a huge bandwidth. If anything has to do with farming, the counties cannot be more restrictive. But the counties don't know about this. Do I think anyone in Williamson County is intentionally trying to be a problem? I don't. I think that people trying to start up farms is few and far between. In fact, before I met with Dr. Hatcher, I talked to my surveyor. I said, Roger, I'm going to get a half hour with the commissioner. I want to present all issues that we know about. Who is running into this? And Roger says, nobody. What I do now is carve up farms into home sites. So, you know, that says a lot. But in the county level, because they don't deal with this often, I don't think that they're made aware of the state law. And when you're in the county, I would imagine, you know, there's different silos. There's the sewage department, which falls under the state health department. Then you've got zoning and planning. You have all these different branches that are siloed and they don't talk to each other. So you have all those divisions there. And then clearly the state level's not talking to the county level. And that's the problem. That's what I was telling Dr. Hatcher. There's a kink in the hose here, because I'm sure, you know, the onboarding of county employees is, here's the county code, here's what you have to do, this is the rule, but there's not like a giant footnote that says, by the way, if it's a farm business, then you have to go to the state, right? They're very siloed into what does Williamson County say in my situation. There's cases going on right now in Robertson County, Wilson County, anything that's around, Nashville is in Davidson County. And surrounding that is where there's the biggest issues. Now, if you get further out in like East and West Tennessee, I don't think you have that. I have a client right now who's trying to put a gas station in Crossville, and there's no rules because they're so desperate for industry, and that's not a farm business anyhow. But the point is, it's got to be very hard for Governor Lee to make rules that apply to all counties in the state. Just like in my family, you've got rural New York and New York City, and it's got to be very hard for a governor to make rules that apply to everybody. So in any event, Dr. Hatcher listened. He was an amazing listener. He really got the point. I think because his farm has been in his family for so long, he has not really addressed with the issues of what it's like to start something new right now. I think, you know, he suggested that I use my platform, which I don't really have a platform to, you know, share what I'm running into. I asked him to please share his platform as commissioner of the state. I said, you know, maybe we can write a letter. Maybe the governor can get involved. Like, there has to be a channel of communication, and that's the problem. There's not. There's a big block. You know, maybe Governor Lee puts out a newsletter. I don't really know, but like the state folks have to talk to the county folks and say, this is what's permitted, this is what's not. So in any event, this was on a Friday. And on Monday, the county called me and they said they found a loophole and they're going to give me a permit for my greenhouse. So thank you, Dr. Hatcher. I appreciate it very much. It means a lot that you took my issue to heart. You know, I know that you're very committed to keeping farms. Since then, actually yesterday, I got a call from the head of the septic department in Williamson County sewage disposal, and they're still having issues with my horse barn. So next week I have to go in there and I have to speak with the zoning, with the planning and septic to explain what exactly I'm doing in this barn. Which I'll do it, you know, fortunately for me, right? Like, this is what is also the problem that I explained to Dr. Hatcher. He shared with me issues that he's run into, right? But it's like, you're commissioner of agriculture for the state. The counties are gonna listen to you. I'm a lawyer, so I can read all this stuff. I can write a very articulate email. But what happens to the folks who don't have that skill set, right? Like, in these cases I read about, these private citizens who are permitted to do what they're trying to do by state law, and the counties come in and further regulate it, they're paying out of pocket for private counsel. I've had to pay out of pocket, of course, for my surveyor's extra time. Any time I spend on this means, you know, I'm self-employed. That means I'm not working with my clients to make money. So yeah, I'm not paying out of pocket to hire a lawyer, but I'm also not being productive and earning income. So all that to say, I have to go in next week to further explain to the county what exactly this barn is going to be, why plumbing is required, what does processing animals mean, to present to zoning, because their attitude is, well, it sounds like it's commercial, and if it's commercial, then you have to go to planning. All farms are businesses. All farms are commercial. It's how it's defined. It's how it's defined in the U.S. Census Bureau. It's how it's defined in Tennessee State Code. Commercial agriculture is still agriculture. They're not in two separate camps. Farms make money. It's still a farm. It's not a mini mart. It's not a laundromat. It's not a gas station. It's a farm business. And if you're going to be deriving income from it, good. That's the point. But it's regulated as a farm should be and not as a separate commercial industry. And that's like another thing of wires being crossed. So I have to go in next week and get in front of, meet with the head of the sewage disposal. I have to meet with planning. And I can do it. Like I said, I don't have to hire someone, but I'm also not being productive with my time if I have to go sit in these meetings. I'm not working on my law practice. I'm not working on the farm. So I'm hopeful that this video gets out to whoever needs to listen to it. I'm hopeful that, you know, maybe my example here changes some things throughout the state. I really don't know. I'm hopeful that Farm Bureau does a better job of advocating for this issue. It's one thing to put out a PDF, but are you having the conversations with the counties? I'm hopeful that Governor Lee really takes more of an interest in kind of communicating knowledge between the state and the counties. And I'm hopeful that Dr. Hatcher does too. You know, I was really impressed by how quickly he got a meeting with me and how quickly he responded to my issues. So next week is my meeting with the county. My greenhouse is up, but I still have to fight for my horse barn now. And I'll share more about this with the journey, and I'll let you know how it goes. And, you know, it kind of comes down to what am I allowed to do by law, and why am I the one educating, right? Why am I educating the government agencies that this is permitted? You know, you've got private sector and public sector. Especially being self-employed now, like I said, I just don't have time for it. But it's okay, because I'm hopeful that this is gonna help other people, and I'm happy to share it, and I'm happy to do it. So stay tuned.